said. Now, I want you to notice there in verse 1 through 3, there is this transition of leadership. And this is so important. There's a succession plan. And you need a succession plan, friends. This is critical for every family, every business owner, whatever your role or task, even if you've got like a ministry within the church, there needs to be some sort of succession plan because all of us are just on temporary assignment. In fact, as you think about succession, there's two important things that need to actually stick out in your mind, and every good leader knows this. All leadership is transitional, it's temporary, and all good leaders know that life goes on. In other words, it goes on beyond me. There's something that's going to happen here in this business, in my family, whatever the case might be, that goes on past me. So transition is really important. Let's talk about that one first. Think about that passage there. In verse 1, it says, "Now it came about after the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord, then God speaks to Joshua." Notice verse 2. "Moses, my servant, is dead." They mourn for, if you look back in Deuteronomy 34, they mourn for 30 days. Everyone's crying, "Oh, how are we going to go on?" Get the Kleenexes. But the reality is there's a transition that's going to take place. Why? Because Moses' ministry was temporary. His leadership was temporary. Friends, this is so important. God is eternal and is the only one that goes on forever. It's God alone who is sufficient for this generation and this generation and this generation and the generations to come. All of us are just on temporary assignment. We are not gods unto ourselves. And one of the great problems you have with leadership, especially in our world today, is people don't understand there is a ministry beyond them. The life goes beyond them. There's this shock element. Some of you might remember when Steve Jobs died. Do you all remember that? About 10 years ago? And like, what's going to happen to Apple? I mean, this is the greatest company ever. $35 billion company. I mean, he is Apple. Ooh. And then he dies. And then this poor guy, Tim Cook, takes over. And they're like, who does he think he is? He's not an innovator. He doesn't know what he's doing. This is going to be horrible. Now, just get this. Just this week, I heard someone talking about Apple being a $3 trillion company. Oh, Steve Jobs, $350 billion company. Great. Now it's $3 trillion. And all of a sudden, Tim Cook is a hero. See what I'm saying? So it's hard to make those transitions, whether it's businesses, nations, families. It's just part of the reality. But you and I need to get our minds wrapped around is that God remains the same. God is sufficient, whether it's for Daniel in the Old Testament or Jeremiah in the Old Testament, or whether it's Peter or Paul in the New Testament or Dorcas or Tabitha or any of these people in the past. He was sufficient for them. He's going to be sufficient for us, and he's going to raise up other leaders. But we need to plan for transitional leadership. You need to plan for this with your family. Every time I go on a trip, done this for years, I get my sons together and say, look, could die on this trip. There's plane accidents, there's car accidents. You want a car accident? Die in a car accident? Come with me on a mission trip sometime. Boy, I'm telling you, I'll never forget, we were in this truck, in this van, there's 8 of us, and we were going through these cane fields. And all of these big, massive semis, it kind of look more like dump trucks than semis, but they were like these big, huge dump trucks, and they're stacked up with cane. And our driver, Moses, is like, hold on, guys, hold on. We're going down these hills. These trucks that are going around us, they don't have any brakes. I'm like, wonderful. You know how they stop? They just run you right over, right? Anyways, crazy. But transition. So I tell my sons, look, I'm going on this trip. I could die on this trip. Take care of your mother. Here's the things you need to remember. I type up a list, give it to them. I'm just temporary. You may need it today. You may need it tomorrow. You may need it in a year, but I'm just temporary. We should do that for our families. We should do that thinking in our churches. We should do that in relationship to nations and countries and states.